I really like this last section in the reading from last Friday, Death, Awareness, and Denial. He discusses the book The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker, a German psychologist. I know of Becker. I know of this book. I've never read it. Apparently it won the Pulitzer Prize in 1973. And a very powerful quotation in the middle of 125 from Becker, who basically said the one reality that all human beings try very desperately to avoid thinking about in any way, shape, or form is their own death. I don't know if that's entirely the case. I do understand it, and I think there's certainly some real truth to it. I do think that here's there's a two-sided thing I'm gonna say. Christianity at its best does teach us to remember, especially at the beginning of Lent, that we are dust, we are ashes, and we return to our dust. Now, it's also the case that Christianity, by its very nature, does not end the story there. So it's one thing to say that Christianity does, and really, at its best, does instruct us, teach us, train us to die well. That we should ideally accept and even invite the fact that as creatures of dust, we do have an ending. We are finite and frail. But we also, at our best, affirm the resurrection of the body as God's redemptive act. We've also, as we know from class, and my own, what's a good word here, complaints about it, we've also typically put a lot of stock in the idea of a soul that survives death. So Becker would obviously say, well, see, again, here are ways that people have employed religious ideas and teachings in order to deny their real finitude, the reality of their demise. And I think that that's an important critique. Now, of course, none of that touches on the question of whether or not we actually do have an immortal soul. You know that I'm inclined strongly to answer that with a no, but I am strongly inclined to affirm the explicit Christian hope that God, having raised Jesus from death, from the dead, from the state of being dead, that God, in a way, obviously, that transcends probably infinitely our capacity to understand or imagine, that God raised Jesus to everlasting life, eternal life, and in doing so has both offered and sealed a promise to us. And the us is at least, you could say, those who believe. It might well be an us that includes all us. And in fact, I tend to think that it does. We'll shelve the questions of, damnation and blessedness and that sort of thing for now. But the point would be that our hope, there is a hope, a Christian hope, rooted in God, who alone has immortality, but in grace and love offers as a gift, not as part of our human nature, but as a gift outside of ourselves, the wonders of resurrection. Now, I'm going to go to the top of 127. Falk does have a nice quotation from Julian Huxley, and his introduction to Teilhard de Chardin's book, The Phenomenon of Man. This was written in the late 1950s. It's a nice quotation. You can read it. But I do want to pick up at the top of 127 a second example, along with Huxley's writing, also coming from mainstream evolutionary biology. Should have had a comma after the word biology there. That way you have a second example is from Dobansky. You got that first comma, a second example, it belongs, but that first comma demands a second comma after the word biology. And I bet you I made this comment on his manuscript, just between you and me. So a second, see, then you can take out that whole phrase that's set off by those commas, and it makes sense. A second example is from Dobansky, also a founder of the modern evolutionary synthesis. He ended his own book, Mankind Evolving, with this quotation from what he called de Chardin's remarkable book. This book was published, cited in Dobansky. When was Dobansky's book? I'm just seeing if I can find it real quick. Footnotes are good and important, and you can learn an awful lot. Whether or not Dobansky, anyway, maybe we won't worry about it right now. At some point, so he calls Desjardins' book, The Phenomenon of Man. I'm not sure I've read the whole thing. I've read a good deal of Desjardins, mostly in seminary, but I assure you that upon my retirement, check it out. It's waiting for me. Let's see. I definitely have not. I've got some things marked. Oh my goodness. Well, I think this is totally random. I think this might be what's quoted. Let me read this that I have. I promise you. I didn't plan any of this. You see here, right here? That's Lodol's demarcations. Man is not the center of the universe as once we thought in our simplicity, but something much more wonderful. The arrow pointing the way to the final unification of the world in terms of life. It's not always clear exactly what Teilhard means, but a lot of his writing is more evocative, emotive. No less important for that. Man alone constitutes the last born, the freshest, the most complicated, the most subtle of all the successive layers of life. This is what's quoted in the book. I did not mean that. This is like a golden moment to me. This is nothing else than the fundamental vision, and I shall leave it at that. What's quoted in here? Man is not the center of the universe as was... Wait a second. Something's not right here. Now, what page was that on? Give me a second. I gotta find that marking again. Holy smokes, that was so random that I don't even know where I read it. Isn't that crazy? Shucks. Well, maybe is the page... No, because he's quoting... Shoot, hold on. I know I could pause it here, but don't you just want to enjoy the, suspense with me? Because I think we have a misquotation. We're going to find out. And if so, it was this... I did read a lot of here in the back. I don't think I read at the front. Oh, there's a smiley face. Early on, I put my smiley face. Once again, to think we must eat. But what a variety of thoughts we get out of one slice of bread! Exclamation point. I put a smile after that. Maybe I have read it all the way through. It's time to reread it in any case. But now, my young friends, let us find... Holy smokes, how did I just so... And then I didn't notice where it was. here it is, page 224. Okay, man is not the center of the universe as once we thought in our simplicity. Oh, it's a different translation. What did he write in? Probably in French. Yeah, he wrote in French. I like, man is not the center of the universe as once we thought in our simplicity. This, man is not the center of the universe as was not evenly believed in the past. Ooh. But something much more wonderful. This version in your book says beautiful. Man, the arrow pointing the way to the final unification of the world in terms of life. So we definitely, this is nothing less than a fundamental vision, and this is nothing else than the fundamental vision, and I shall leave it at that. Now, so that's where the quotation ends. Since we're here, let's do a little detective work. Reading from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, the next thing he says is, but, oh, maybe we should go on. But this vision, mind you, only acquires its full value, is indeed only defensible through the simultaneous illumination within ourselves of the laws and conditions of heredity. I can see now why perhaps the guy that quoted him decided to leave it, literally to leave it at that. Teilhard is not a typically easy read, but as I told you, he is enjoying quite a revival of interest in at least certain, we'll say, pockets of contemporary theology, including, I should mention, including a lot of work by a Point Loma grad. His name is Andrew Davis. I think I can happily claim him as my student. Obviously, he was other people's students as well. But took a bunch of classes with me, led a discussion group in the book Claiming Abraham. I've shared a little bit of it with you, with other students at Point Loma before it came out. Was just I'm going to go on for a second about Andrew Davis. Went and did his master's in theology and then a PhD in philosophical theology, we'll say, and he's been a very active young scholar. My goodness, he's not a whole lot over 30, maybe 32, 33 years old. But he's one of the people that's really really exploring Teilhard currently, sort of on the theological horizon. So I'm proud of him, and Point Loma should be proud of him. Frankly, he'd like to have my job. I say that's just between you and me, because he's asked about it. But anyhow, some really good stuff to the end of this chapter. And I'm going to pause here, and then I'm going to go quickly a little bit more. You're great. You're patient. And thanks for letting me, do a little Teilhard detective work, throw in a little Andrew Davis. Andrew Davis? Is that what I said? That's his name. Andrew Davis? Is that right? Gee whiz. I should check some of his books. I've got some here. I think that's right.